It was just a Lu family, even though it was in Ning City, it was still very famous. However, because of the too low-key style of the Mo family, it seems that people forget that the position of the Mo family in this city is only second to that of the Jin group. Mr. Mo, you must not say that. This is all forced by Lu Sen's heart. I can't help it. Anyway, he just wants to push it clean now, throwing all the responsibility on Lu Sengzhen's body. But in fact, to put it bluntly, anyone can tell that if this matter had not been made by Zhou Fan, how could Lu Sengzhen, a person who had just returned to China not long ago, go to Zhou Fan to perform this play? Do you hear everything clearly? Suzhili didn't want to listen to Zhou Fan's words anymore, because her ears were too hot, and she couldn't look at this scum directly with the attitude of looking at people. Following her gaze, Mo's eyes pursed his lips and smiled, raising his mobile phone to expose it to everyone's sight. It's clear. You guys. Zhou Fan softened and sat on the ground. Am I fooled? Mo's eyes scowled contemptuously. Originally, I was worried that there was no evidence to come to the door to find justice. Unexpectedly, you are still honest. Jin family. What do you mean? You brought people back so impatiently. The moment Suzhili brought the man home, the anger in Ding Moyu's eyes was almost uncontrollable. It's just that, after all, Mo's eyes is a member of the Mo family, she still wants to give this face. Sullenly, she cast a scornful look at Suzhili, and then she turned her head back and said to Mo's eyes, Young Master Mo is always a person of status, so why did he accompany my daughter-in-law to make a mess? Aunt Jin, what you said is wrong. I just learned that you heard some rumors here not long ago, and it seems to have something to do with me. Isn't this about to come to you to understand the situation? For Ding Moyu, Mo's eyes was actually quite admired before. But at that moment, he completely dispelled all his previous concepts. What a shopping mall iron lady, to put it bluntly, it's just a soft ear and a high-profile and broad-minded one. Understand situation. Ding Moyu pondered, and couldn't help but glance at Suzhili. It seems that this girl has already told Mo's eyes. In this case, she no longer pretended to be stupid. She raised her eyes proudly, and she said coldly, if I'm not mistaken, Master Mo. I should have known the situation with my daughter-in-law. Indeed, Mo's eyes nodded, and said tepidly, but after all, the rumors are rumors. Whether this matter is true or false, should Aunt Jin also come and ask me the client? Rumor. Ding Moyu's tone couldn't help but hesitated. Don't glance, she looked at Suzhili, her eyes confused. Could it be that she really misunderstood Suzhili? Impossible. Ding Moyu calmed his mind and waved away the shaky thought in his mind. Ding Menjing ran over and said this to herself. What's more, in order to be cautious, she deliberately went to Lu Sengzhen to provide a supplementary proof, which was enough to show that the matter was already as iron-proof. Ding Menjing may have prejudice against Suzhili, but this Sen Xin has no stand, let alone framed Suzhili. But at this time, Suzhili suddenly spoke up. Today, I brought Mo's eyes here, just to show you the evidence I found. Choosing a day is worse than hitting the sun. Mo's eyes appeared and asked Zhou Fan to come out. At first, Zhou Fan thought it was at the cocktail party that night. His fawning left an impression on Mo's eyes. This is because Mo Dashao thought of him, and there was a business to win him over. Therefore, after receiving Mo's eyes' call, he almost couldn't wait, and set out for the appointment right away. As everyone knows, when he saw the figure who accompanied Mo's eyes, the first thought that came to his mind was to wish he could grow wings and fly away from Suzhili. Why, brother-in-law sees me and is ready to leave without saying hello. This may be the first time that Suzhili officially called Zhou Fan brother-in-law for nothing else, but simply wanted to respond to him, nothing more. And Zhou Fan, when he heard Suzhili's words, his already lifted footsteps couldn't help but stop like this, and the suspended feet were so awkward. Barely steadily stepping down, he turned around and smirked, smiling flatteringly, "Zhili, aren't you kidding me? What is the relationship between us and friendship, how is it possible?" With Mo's eyes in front of him, even if Zhou Fan disliked Sophie in his heart, he must hide it. If this is the case, why don't brother-in-law sit down and have a chat? Suzhili didn't move his eyebrows, but still had an unhappy tone. However, Zhou Fan actually resisted her suggestion. "It's just that everyone is here now. If you just run away like this, don't you feel guilty?" Together with this idea, Zhou Fan immediately thought of it that night, he and Liu Sengzhen joined hands to leave the two people in front of them together. Now that they appear at the same time, wouldn't it have anything to do with that? Looking suspiciously at the two, he immediately waved away the frightening guess in his mind. That night, they clearly did not leak, and it was impossible to be spotted. He must not scare himself here. Settling his mind, he stepped forward and sat down. "I don't know if Mr. Mo and Zhili are calling for me today. Is there a big case? Are you ready to help me?" "The big case?" Mo's eyes stretched out, his voice with a smile, his eyebrows darkened, and he said, "There really is such a case, and this single case is yours." "Oh? What kind of case is it, Mr. Mo? Hurry up and let me hear it." Zhou Fan couldn't help but stunned when he heard it. Must he? Wouldn't it be obvious that he squeezed profits? Just as he was struggling, Mo's eyes suddenly looked terrified, and his voice fell into a low voice, "Oh, this case, I just want to do less trouble, do me a favor, and help me take responsibility for drugging and kidnapping people at a reception. Your experience should not be difficult, right? WH. What? Mr. Mo, what do you mean by this? Why don't I understand?" Zhou Fan's heartbeat almost paused, and his words had begun to stammer. Brother-in-law really doesn't understand? Or are you pretending to be confused? Suzhili was on the side, and said in a calm voice. "Zhili, what you said is wrong, it's good, what am I pretending to be confused?" When he said this, Zhou Fan's eyes flickered, and he dared not look at the eyes of both of them. "It looks like brother-in-law is planning to pretend to the end." Suzhili was calm, still holding his head high, folded his hands on his lap, and said calmly, "It's okay, since my brother-in-law has already expressed his opinion, then I'm not afraid to hand it over to the police. Let this be a real case." Suzhili said it hoarse. Not long ago, in her mind, Jin Chen was the mainstay like a mountain and the sustenance of her soul. However, the enlightenment in front of her made her suddenly discover that no matter how much she relied on, the moment when the trust cracked, even if he had paid more for her, she was still so mediocre. Jin Chen was actually quite expected to Suzhili's excitement. With a deep breath, "He can only promise her," I said, "I will investigate this matter thoroughly. It's just, not now." Of course, at this moment, he definitely wouldn't say this to Suzhili. However, as sensitive as her, even if Jin Chen didn't say anything, it was enough to cause her to guess. She laughed aloud, she said, "No, since you have your concerns, then I also have my ideas. Regarding the thorough investigation, I will find a way." As she spoke, she wanted to hang up. "How do you want to do it?" Jin Chen's voice was calm, inexplicably harsh. "What I want to do, I'm afraid it doesn't make much sense to you, you don't need to know. Zhili, do you have to draw a clear line with me?" Finally, Jin Chen couldn't help it, and asked Suzhili openly. "Didn't you draw a line with me first?" Suzhili sneered, "Jin Chen, you know the thorn in my heart, I really hate the nonsense of those outside who hurt me. It's the kind of hatred from the heart. Then if I promise you, after I have settled the matter here and returned to China, I will help you find out the ins and outs of this matter as soon as possible, and then leave it to you to deal with, are you willing to listen to me at this time?" A word. Helpless, Jin Chen can only make promises to her. When Suzhili heard this, his heart was still shaken. Only after raising her eyes to look at the surrounding environment, her swaying heart became firm again. I can promise you that I won't do anything for the time being, but... She paused, and said in a sonorous tone, I will not stop investigating this matter thoroughly. If you are willing to help me, please tell me what happened that night. If you don't want to, I won't force it. You. This time, when her voice fell, she resolutely chose to hang up Jin Chen's call without even waiting for his reply. Looking at the disconnected call, Jin Chen understood what she meant. She wanted to give him time to think carefully. But what she didn't actually know was that this time when he arrived in the United States, more importantly, he wanted to help her resolve the matter with Yang Song. Therefore, no matter what the current domestic situation is, he cannot go back at this time. Because Felina's father is dead. This is an excellent opportunity. As long as they help Yang Song get rid of the Fei family, Suzhili's personal safety can be guaranteed. Their father and daughter, it's time to meet each other. So, after hesitating, he put away the phone slowly, without saying anything. At the other end, Suzhili, just like Jin Chen here, stared at the phone screen in a daze. After a long while, it was worthwhile to recover. Moxies, you can come out. Raising her voice, she shouted in the direction of the lounge, there are still a few questions, and you need to explain it to me. Suzhili staggered back, his palm holding the phone was almost overwhelmed, shaking slightly. Her heart kept surging, and she could only cover her with her hand in order to suppress the suffocation that drowned her. But Jin Chen on the other side of the phone could only keep silent. As he had promised Suzhili, he was unwilling to deceive her. After pondering for a while, he slowly pulled his lips, yes. Yes. Suzhili couldn't wait for him to finish speaking, so he screamed, Jin Chen, you said you saw me sleeping with another man with your own eyes, but despite this, you have been silent. If not your mother came to see me today, are you planning to carry this green hat so hard? It's not what you think it is. Faced with Suzhili's stern accusations, Jin Chen obviously just wanted to explain, but he was a little bit powerless. That day, nothing happened. Hearing Suzhili's words green hat, Jin Chen's heart was actually heavy. At the beginning, when many people thought that Suzhili had a bad reputation on the other side, didn't they just secretly say that he was green? Others said they were still dissatisfied, not to mention that today's words came out of Suzhili's mouth, which became more and more ironic. If nothing happens, then why am I there? Also, if I'm really in the suite, how did you know? Who told you about it? At this moment, Suzhili's thoughts were surprisingly calm. She will not faint without a reason, and it is even more unlikely that Jin Chen will find her without a reason. Then, the person who reported the news to Jin Chen would definitely have nothing to do with the black hand behind the scenes. Why, don't you dare to say? After waiting for Jin Chen's answer, she asked aggressively again. As for the black hand behind it, I haven't found any evidence yet, so it's better to wait for me. You haven't found evidence yet? Suzhili interrupted him in a cold voice, and said scornfully, is that someone who has doubts? Jin Chen looked down and wanted to calm Suzhili's emotions. However, I am afraid that the situation at this moment has long been out of his control. After a pause, he said, if there is any, I will tell you. Jin Chen. Suzhili snorted his name steeply, do you know? I even think that I don't know you anymore. She said, on the side that Jin Chen couldn't see, tears had already flooded, I'm your wife, if I really do something I'm sorry to you, I'm willing to bear such a wrong result, because I know that when a relationship betrays, the feeling is more than just a broken heart. At the beginning, the relationship between her and Meng Zehan was not as profound as with Jin Chen, but the moment Meng Zehan was betrayed, she felt that her inner world had collapsed. So, if she really cheated on her, then she would be unable to face Jin Chen in death. However, now Jin Chen knows that she has been wronged and designed by others. But what about his approach? I am your wife. You know that someone has deployed all of this and is watching me, but now you would rather let me swallow this breath and let me bear this unwarranted crime, and you have to keep that behind the scenes. Mean. The air suddenly became cold and stagnant. Suzhili was silent here, obviously waiting for Jin Chen's reply. On the day of the reception, when she actually woke up, she had already discovered Jin Chen's abnormality. It's just that she didn't think deeply. What Jin Chen said, she believed. From beginning to end, she never thought about it. What if Jin Chen deliberately concealed something from her? Frowning, her body began to tremble unconsciously. The slightest chill permeated her consciousness, even she herself hadn't noticed. Mo's eyes didn't dare say anything at the moment. Turning around, he simply stood up, kept a safe distance from Suzhili's position, and then paced towards his lounge. He could see that she was not very happy to let him hear her conversation with Jin Chen. In this case, give her a quiet space and go to Jin Chen to clarify the ins and outs of the matter. It's just that these tiny details can't attract any attention to Suzhili, who is disturbed at this time. Holding her breath, she even felt extremely solemn when she vomited. In this way, the two sides remained silent for a long time, until Suzhili almost thought that Jin Chen had already hung up the phone. Are you not going to say something? When he said this, the corners of Suzhili's mouth even trembled. She asked him if he was hiding something. However, he did not deny it. He didn't even deny it. In fact, obviously, Jin Chen was also in deep thought. Even when he raised his voice, he could feel his inexplicable depression. After taking a deep breath, he went on to say, on the day of the reception, I will rush over in a hurry, and even the reporter will not have time to leave, not because you passed out, but, missing. Missing! Suzhili exclaimed. No, it's not so much surprise as it is unbelievable. After all, what Jin Chen said is ridiculous. The last time she disappeared, she was by Felina and the others. The memory of that time is so profound. And when she passed out briefly that night, Jin Chen actually told her that she was missing. Then where did you find me? Immediately after changing his mind, Suzhili asked directly. It's the room where you woke up. Jin Chen replied with a calm voice. Suzhili frowned, that's the room? But I'm so good, what do I run there for? Yet, you are so good, what are you going to do there? Jin Chen repeated her words, and Yamo became clear in his heart. That day, he had been unable to figure out who was behind this incident. Who would have the ability to feint and put Suzhili in the suite under the crowd, and then lead him over? The most important thing is that person's motivation for doing all this. It seems that everything seems to have an answer now. What do you mean by this? Suzhili didn't know what Jin Chen was thinking. He only felt a little distrust in his tone. I was in the suite that day. You saw it too. I was with you. There is nothing. When I went, Moses was lying next to you. Jin Chen's voice fell sharply, cutting off Suzhili's monstrous anger. In an instant, Suzhili was petrified. She opened her mouth and talked together for a long while before she found her voice. You mean, I slept with Moses? Hearing this, Suzhili's eyes suddenly stopped. From the very beginning, the deep-rooted concept in her heart was that this matter was born out of nothing. But now? Moses suddenly said such a sentence, which perfectly connected him with the events of that night. Could it be that that night, something unknown really happened between her and Moses? Shaking his head, Suzhili quickly waved away the absurd idea in his mind. Even if she fainted that day, even if Moses was drunk that day, how could she not know what happened that day? What happened? Moses looked at her with an unusually stern expression and couldn't help asking with concern. Hearing his voice, Suzhili slowly raised his eyes and stared at his handsome face slightly with suspicion. The look in her eyes made Moses come over in time. I am afraid that this matter is far less simple than he thought. At least, Suzhili's expression has said everything. Let's talk, I can help you clarify what is the matter. Moses said readily. However, Suzhili's mood was much heavier than when he first came. While she was pondering, Jin Chen's exclusive ringtone rang at this moment. Picking up the phone, Suzhili first checked the time. At this point, he just got off the plane. Why did you call her in such a hurry? Suzhili would not simply think that it was just that he came to report his safety. Stabilizing her breath, she answered the phone, here. Her indifference was completely beyond Jin Chen's expectations. Presumably, she had guessed the purpose of his call. After a pause, he asked, where are you now? In a word, it also indirectly shows that he already knows what happened. After receiving Li Xian's message, Jin Chen had already guessed that Suzhili could not quietly accept these infamy this time. Su was because after she had carried too much stigma that she didn't need to bear, she especially bounced back against this unwarranted crime. So if this incident suddenly broke out today, she would never wait patiently for him to go back and solve it. Jin Chen now only hopes that Suzhili will not be impulsive. It's a pity that Suzhili's answer still hit his deepest worry. I am in the Mo's group now. Since your mother thinks that the relationship between me and Moxey's is not clean, then I will ask Moxey's to stand up and make it clear to everyone. Suzhili was obviously also anxious. When he said this, he didn't shy away at all, but Moses was still standing beside him. Faced with her excitement, Jin Chen was somewhat weak. Zhili, listen to my words. I will deal with this matter when I go back. You leave Mo's now, okay? Why? Suzhili didn't understand. In the past, no matter what she did, Jin Chen always supported her unconditionally. Even when Ding Moyu opposed her, he resolutely followed her out of the Jin's house. But why now? She just wants to prove her innocence, but Jin Chen turned out to stop her. What happened to all this? Suzhili suddenly flashed a flash of light in his mind. Lifting her eyes and glanced at Moses, she turned her back, lowered her voice and asked again to the phone, are you hiding something from me? Just now, Suzhili didn't say much to the secretary, only that there was something urgent. It just happened that the two companies are now discussing cooperation matters. Who can guess her trip, and what she wants to say has nothing to do with cooperation. But how could Moses guess that she didn't want to talk about official business? Seeing Suzhili's puzzlement, Moses explained in a warm voice, from the decision to cooperate to the present, when have you come to talk with me in person? To put it bluntly, I rely on you to take down the hero business. Outsiders don't know, we still don't know? This cooperation, I am driving Yuso clan. In other words, Suzhili is qualified to take Zhou. And when she didn't want to see him, even if the official business was urgent, she could let go. Anyway, there was a problem, which was also a problem for Mose. Nodded, Suzhili still lacked interest in this matter. Well, I'm here this time because I just heard some rumors about you and me. Not in the mood to bullshit, Suzhili went straight. But when Moses heard this, the whole person became nervous. Related to both of us? He exclaimed, hurriedly pushing away with both hands, I will state my position first. I have never contacted you on any formal occasions, and even the woman Xiaojing II externally, I did not let her know that we were privately. I've met, no matter what you hear, I'm absolutely innocent. Originally, Suzhili had been guarding him, and there was going to be another moth, but he couldn't clean it after jumping into the Yellow River. I didn't suspect that it was your rumor spread. Suzhili looked at Moses coldly, and at his nervous look, she felt a little funny no matter how tense her mood was. After sinking her breath, she went on to say, you are spreading this kind of rumor now, isn't it just burning your body? You are right. Mo's eyes could not help but breathe a sigh of relief when she heard that she could still analyze it so rationally. Then what is going on now? What is the rumor? A few days ago, didn't you have a cocktail party at Mo's? Where were you that day? Suzhili didn't even think about it, and asked directly. That day? Mo's eyes curled his eyebrows for a moment, and seriously recalled the situation that day. I left the scene early that day because I was drunk. You're drunk? Suzhili felt a little surprised. In that kind of occasion, who is not just a sip, who can drink heartily and heartily? Mo's eyes felt a little weird when Suzhili said so. Do you want to start something? Suzhili asked, turning his head. At the cocktail party that day, I didn't really seem to drink much, but I didn't know what was going on, so I was completely drunk. No one has mentioned it before, but he has never thought about it. Now think about it, is it possible that there is something tricky in it? Then after you got drunk, did you leave? Suzhili asked again. Well, but... Mo's eyes seemed to think of something, and at the end he added, it wasn't at the beginning. I should have been resting in the hotel suite nearby. Then my father said, yes. As he said, his voice stopped. With his brows furrowed, he suddenly realized that there seemed to be something terrible, which he had accidentally knocked through. What is it? You say it. Suzhili was not in the mood to listen to him at this moment, and hurriedly urged. After hesitating for a while, Mo's eyes raised his eyes and solemnly said to Suzhili, it's Jin Chen's person who sent me back. Moxi's is signing a contract, so the importance of this meeting can be seen. The secretary hesitated for a long time, and finally found a leisure space, quietly entered. Fu Er reported Suzhili's situation to Mo's eyes. When Mo's eyes heard this, he was really surprised. She said something urgent. This is new. Since they have known each other for so long, Suzhili's clear intentions towards him have really made him quite helpless. Although he is indeed interested in Suzhili, after all she is married, no matter how much he has an idea, can he still be a third party? Suzhili's attitude made him very frustrated, because it was a question of other people's character. But today, Suzhili unexpectedly came to him for the first time. Although it was in a very formalized location like the company, if it wasn't really urgent, she would definitely be able to bear it. Raising his hand to look at the watch, he asked in a low voice, about how long has it been? Half an hour. The secretary actually never expected that Mo's eyes was so nervous about Suzhili's visit, so when he said this, he was inexplicably panicked. It's a pity that now Mo's eyes doesn't have time to pay attention to this little emotion of the secretary. After hesitating for about 3 seconds, he decisively said to the secretary, go and call the vice president. But you are about to sign a contract now. The secretary is completely messed up. If it weren't for the large number of orders for this contract, which is one of the company's key projects, she wouldn't have squatted for half an hour to find a gap to report. Go, I will explain here. Mo's eyes gave the order directly without thinking about it. The secretary has nothing to do, the boss has spoken, and she can only do it. On the other hand, Mo's eyes, since he decided to see Suzhili, he naturally went directly to explain the situation to the person in charge. Suzhili waited patiently. Since entering the Mo's group until now, she has been waiting in the waiting room, and has not even asked the secretary half a time about the progress of the Moxi's meeting. Therefore, when Mo's eyes appeared half an hour later, she was still quite calm. Have you waited a long time? When Mo's eyes first saw Suzhili, he had a long-lost sense of sight. It seems that they haven't seen each other since the last time they spoke. I don't know, she's doing, okay? Although there are many words to greet Suzhili in his heart, Mo's eyes still endures it. With a serious face, he stepped slowly into the waiting room. Okay. Suzhili was very indifferent, a cup of water was boiled, she had no temper at all now. Besides, when she came to the Mo's group this time, she didn't mean to come to Mok's eyes for a fight. Upon seeing this, Mo's heart felt calm. With a gentle laugh, he said, "Come to my office and talk." When the words fell, he took the lead before Suzhili could react. Suzhili didn't say a word, got up and followed up. This was Suzhili's first visit to Mo's office, but she didn't have any interest in paying attention to anything unimportant. When the secretary put the coffee in front of Suzhili and withdrew, Suzhili spoke directly, "I am here to see you today, not for official business. In other words, it is purely private." Mo's was startled for a second when he was frank about her. Immediately, he curled his lips and smiled, "I know. You know.